listening to Cody Lundin's Keep Your Ass Alive, where Cody teaches real people real skills, giving raw, hard survival advice with a hug. And now, broadcasting from somewhere in a high desert wilderness, here's Cody.
Hey, welcome to another episode of Keep Your Ass Alive. I'm Cody Lundin, your host, and we're going to do it down the barrel. And what that means is I'm going to be teaching you one-on-one, just me and you sitting at home or wherever the hell you're sitting, about a certain skill or whatever. And in this case, I want to talk about tips for choosing a good survival instructor. There's a lot of stuff, and I say that word because I'm not supposed to curse too much on this podcast, that's going on regarding survival training and people who aren't real survival instructors that can be dangerous. Remember that survival skills deal with your life. We're dealing with your personal safety. So having a credible survival instructor is of paramount importance, obviously. So what I have here is a list. This is available from my website, codylundin.com, but I'll tell you the context and the history of my list for choosing a good survival instructor. My first book was put out in 2003. At that point in time, and it's gotten worse with TV survival shows, social media, etc., there was things to watch out for regarding people who are being disingenuous teaching survival skills. So I actually had part of this list in my book, and it's still there in 98.6 Degrees, The Art of Keeping Your Ass Alive, to try to cue in a client or a reader or a potential student about what to look for in a good trainer in the realm of self-reliance. So what I'm going to do is go down these tips. Now it's evolved to 17 because back in 2003, we had a lot less tech than we do now. And so the list has only grown, which is not necessarily a good thing. I'm going to read the heading here, and I'm just going to ad-lib about what that means to me regarding you getting quality training in outdoor survival skills, primitive living skills, or urban preparedness. Number one, now these are in no particular order, but this is how I've chosen to order them. Ask to see the instructor's resume. Professional people have professional resumes. When you go to a survival school, you're inherently entrusting these people with your safety, potentially your life, and they're going to be giving you information that in an emergency scenario, you may or may not remember to utilize in the field. Now, if that information is bogus, we got a problem. The biggest problem is you're dead because they gave you bogus information. So when you're vetting a survival instructor, make sure they have a resume. If they have a website, that resume should be online. It should be a professional resume of their background, teaching outdoor survival skills or whatever their deal is in the realm of self-reliance. Ideally, you'll also be able to vet that person. What that means is letters of recommendation. So you have the professional resume, and then you have letters of recommendation where you can call Hank or whatever and say, hey, Hank, how is John as a teacher? Now, this is commonplace in something called the job workforce, right? You don't go into a place to get a job in the corporate world by saying how many YouTube videos you have. You have to have something on paper. It's called a resume. It's not old school. It's common sense, especially what we're talking about now. Make sure your potential survival instructor has a professional resume. Resumes lie, so make sure you can be able to vet that resume. Number two, beware of the hobbyist. Again, you're dealing with your life. You're dealing with survival training. You don't want to go to a doctor who's actually a plumber and just does, pancreatic surgery on the weekends. That's not what you want for this. So what is your professional survival instructor? Do they actually make their living doing this? And that should be obvious on a website. Again, back to the resume or whatever. Go to a professional to get training where your life is on the line. Don't go to the Uncle Frank that teaches the Cub Scouts every couple of weeks, but he's actually, an IRS person or whatever. You don't want that. Number three, self-published is not published. Publishing, oh my God, how that's changed. When you go through a traditional publisher, for better or for worse, they're vetting you to a certain extent. Back in the day, it was on the quality of the work that person put out. Nowadays, it's also, are they famous? And the fame can be fleeting. So what do I mean? What I mean by that is if you did survival skills for a little bit as a hobby and then got on a survival TV show and got the interest of a publisher because you were a name brand at that point, but you weren't really a survival instructor, that publisher would probably take you on because they want to make money. That's the way it's happening now, potentially. Now, there's a lot of good self-published books out there, but there's no vetting process to a self-published book. Anyone, your grandma, your aunt, or whatever, can put out whatever survival book they want with self-publishing. You can do that easily now online, much more so than 20 or 30 years ago. So again, a publisher, because their reputation, they have skin in the game as well, typically will do some vetting of that person making the survival book. But even that's gotten fairly lame because of social media, because of TV shows, etc. So if your survival instructor is an author, that book is a way that they can give it all they got, right? They have a lot of time to write that book. So you can almost vet that instructor to a certain extent about the quality of the book, not just grammatical stuff, but is this skill viable? And you can cross-check that. So again, self-published is not published through a publishing house. So just be careful about that. Number 4, train from someone who teaches survival skills full-time. We don't want to go with a hobbyist like we've already talked about. So if your survival instructor is only teaching 2 months out of the year, then how are they teaching, or what are they supplying their income with the other 10 months? That's fairly easy to vet if someone's a full-time instructor. And it's hard to get courses filled and to have courses in this industry. There's a lot of dilution in the industry right now, in my opinion, because of a lot of stuff on TV and social media where all of a sudden everyone's the expert. And it's hard to ferret out who's real and who's not. And that's part of the reason that I want to do this down the barrel, is to help you be able to ask the hard questions, which your survival instructor, quote unquote, should be able to answer with no problem if they're the real deal. Number 5, train from an instructor who lives what they teach. Do they live in the city? Are they in Manhattan but teaching wilderness survival? That's not inherently totally bad, but they're not doing what they're doing for a living, right? If you have an instructor who lives closer to the wilderness, who's outside a lot, and you can see that, are they lily white? Do they have a tan? Do they have calluses at all? Or are they only calluses on their fingertips from doing keyboarding stuff online? Ideally you want someone that lives what they teach, because they'll have that passion for teaching, because it's not just a job or an income, it's part of their lifestyle. And that's pretty important, because again, remember, we're dealing with your safety because you're trusting this person with your life. Number 6, if your primary interest in primitive living skills train from someone who lives in your geographic region. Well, what does that mean? What it means is we have a big planet. So if you ask an Inuit, we used to call them Eskimo, don't do that anymore, how to harvest cactus fruit, you're going to get a bunch of blank stares through the caribou clothing they have. So you want to train with someone, if you're dealing with primitive skills, which deals a lot with flora and fauna, who's in your bioregion. So if you're into desert survival skills, train with someone who has access and or who lives in the desert. The reason this is so important with primitive skills, more so than modern survival, is primitive skills directly deal with the bioregion that person's in. So the Yavapai Indians in this area of Yavapai County were dealing with specific flora resources. Flora, remember floral, that's the plant kingdom, and fauna's the animal kingdom. We don't have stuff that belongs in Kentucky or Washington State, potentially here in Yavapai County in Arizona. It's bio-exclusive. Now, the technique might be universal. Doing a bow drill might be the same technique-wise in Maine as it is in Washington State, as it is here in Arizona. But the species of wood you'd use to make that fire by friction are going to vary radically by the bioregion you're in. Now, the cool thing about Arizona is we have 3 geographic provinces, all 4 North American deserts, and 12 different biotic life zones. So we have everything from Canada to desert within a 2-hour drive on an interstate called I-17. So there's a lot we have to play with, specifically here in Arizona. But again, train from someone who lives in the bioregion you'd like to know more about, if at all possible. Number 7, ask around about your instructor's background. This is a very small club, folks, of outdoor survival instructors. There's a very, very small amount of people that actually do this professionally. So people talk. And reputation is everything, and credibility is everything. Again, because you're dealing with people's safety. Ask around about this gal or guy that you want to train with. Do they have a good reputation among their peers or not? We know about online and about believing stuff that's online, and there's a lot of nonsense online. Your job is to do the vetting. I'm trying to help you with that, with these points. But if you're thinking about training with X, Y, and Z person, make sure that they're respected in the field of outdoor survival skills or bushcrafting or primitive skills or whatever label you want to put on it, because it's a very small community of people that do this. And you'll be able to find out a lot of information about what other people think about the person that you're proposing to train with. Number 8, beware the expert, and I have that in quotation marks, as nature is too full of variables to support this type of personality. Really cocky people and really people full of themselves die in the woods sooner or later, and they sometimes take students with them. So you don't want to have a personality, and unfortunately survival skills is full of people with a lot of ego and cocky personalities, and I don't know why. When the earth can take us out in a heartbeat and we're trying to adapt to what she's doing to live. But beware of that. And part of that cocky personality is someone who thinks they know everything, and someone who you never hear come out of their mouth, I don't know. You'll hear I don't know come out of my mouth quite a bit because I just don't. There's 27 species of mustard plant alone in Yavapai County, 27 species of one plant alone in this county in Arizona, the small state of Arizona compared to the world. There's always more stuff to know. So if you have an instructor who thinks they're done learning or who thinks they're an expert in anything, they're an advanced student at best, because the learning curve is unending in this field. Because when you're dealing with a profession with human nature under stress, scared people, and Mother Nature at her worst, you have these two things that have the most variables I can think of coming together, and all hell's breaking loose, right? That's what a survival situation is. It's a life-threatening situation. So beware about the personality of the person you're training with, and there should be a little bit of humility in realizing they don't know everything about what there is to know, because no one does unless they're full of you know what. Number 9. If your interest in learning survival skills runs deeper than experiencing a cool eco-vacation, study with someone who knows and lives several forms of self-reliant skills. What do I mean by that? And my Aboriginal Living Skills School is an example. We teach modern outdoor survival skills. What happens if the Jeep breaks down in a 21st century scenario? We teach primitive living skills, making fire with sticks, stone knives, etc. And I teach urban preparedness with or without zombies. So those are 3 different brands of self-reliant training. They overlap in that they deal with self-reliance and keeping people alive, but they're taught contextually and content-wise very differently. So what I might teach a student in an urban survival scenario might be very different than what I'd be teaching them in a wilderness survival scenario. The beauty about knowing all of these things to some level or not is you can cross-train. So if you know how to make primitive fire real well, but also know how to make modern fire and aware of the, BTU contents and fire triangle and etc., you can cross-train a student and you can give them more than their money's worth by bringing these different legs of different self-reliant paths into that one training attention. It's called cross-training, right? So the more you know, the less you need. But the more of these different variables and different contexts of survival training and self-reliance your survival instructor might know, the better off you'll be able to get more information from them in the field or in the classroom or both. Number 10, before attending a hands-on course, make sure the student to qualified instructor ratio is low. Survival training is inherently pretty hands-on, especially if you're out in the field, which eventually is where you should be with your instructor. Wilderness survival should essentially at some point be taught in the wilderness, and we'll get into that maybe later on. But I don't have any more than 12 students per class, sometimes 11, and that's with the co-instructor. So you're dealing with a breakdown of ideally 6-to-1, right? 6 students to 1 instructor. If you have a school or an instructor that has loads and dozens and dozens and dozens of students in a class that's supposed to be hands-on, your training will suffer. Because you know how it is. The people that are a little bit shy are going to stand in the back, and the people that are obnoxious as hell are going to go up on there and commandeer all the skills while you stand back, with your hands crossed. So look for a school and instructor ratio that has a low student to instructor ratio, especially if it's a wilderness-based course and especially if it's hands-on. Otherwise, your training will suffer. We don't want that. Number 11. Is the field course you're thinking about taking really taught in the field or just outside? Now, I hinted on this on the last one. We do courses that are classroom-based. And I'm saying I'm talking about outdoor survival instructors in general. We do sometimes courses that are just outside, right, as an outdoor survival instructor. And then a few of us do outdoor survival courses that are taught in the wilderness. And that's the gold standard. So if you're doing an advanced course on survival instruction at a state park 100 yards from the parking lot where they're having hot dogs for sale, what that doesn't do for the mental psyche is you realize you're not in it for real. When you're taking students way out into wilderness where the risk is there and it's obvious because the rattlesnake just crawled by or whatever, what that does is that sets that student's mindset for real optimal training. And also they're taking materials directly from a wilderness environment. We're not just buying a bunch of cedar from Home Depot or a big box store and then cutting them up with an axe in some state park and everyone's making a fire by friction set. You're actually having to learn how to age wood, what species of the wood is important, what works and what doesn't, just like indigenous people have been doing for thousands of years. So a survival course that's just taught outside doesn't mean that survival course is taught in the wilderness or a remote outdoor setting where you can experience that mind shift of being out in true wilderness and where you can experience harvesting raw materials directly from a wilderness environment, which makes your learning appreciation and learning experience go way up. Number 12, one of my favorites. Beware the phony TV survival expert. Oh my God, don't get me started, but you already have, so I'm going to have to start and finish it. There's a lot of nonsense on TV. There's a lot of people that aren't real survival instructors on TV that are playing the part of that. They're doing so for money, fame, a combination package of that or whatever. The horrifying part of that is some of these personalities now think they're a survival instructor and are actually teaching survival courses with very limited field experience. You don't want that. One of my first red flags about survival instructors is if they lead with a TV show they've been on or how many TV shows they've been on. If someone's leading with corporate television shows instead of an actual resume with field experience, that should be a red flag for you. And I'm telling you, just because someone's been on TV doesn't know what in the hell that doesn't mean what they know what in the hell they're talking about when it comes to teaching outdoor survival skills. Again, outdoor survival skills deal with your safety. You have to have someone that's credible, that's authentic, that's honest to teach these skills, or you risk your life. TV is typically none of that. So what you're looking for is not someone who's been on TV. That's not a credibility measure by any standpoint. What you're looking for is the other points that we're going over about how to vet your potential instructor or not. Number 13, the phony online expert, YouTube wannabe, or optional BS survival story. Unfortunately, survival training has now been trending. So we have the TV shows, we have the social media. It's kind of what you're wearing or what you're buying instead of who's training you. It's about product instead of quality on a lot of this stuff. So be careful and realize there's a lot of people selling you stuff that you don't need out there. Survival training deals with a lack of resources because what just killed you was probably a lack of resources. If someone's hypothermic, meaning their core body temperature is too low, it was a lack of resources to stay warm. Maybe it was a lack of clothing. Maybe it was a lack of the ability to make a fire, whatever that is. It wasn't potentially just more stuff and more gear. So the motto for my school is the more you know, the less you need. So clearly I have an issue with people just selling crap out there because they can, that are catering to people's ignorance, fear, or ego. So be careful about product taking over skill in the realm of outdoor survival training, and realize that most survival situations deal with a lack of resources. Something got lost, someone got hurt, we forgot that thing in the back of the truck, whatever it is. If you're going out into the woods all kitted up, we call that camping. That's not survival training. That's fine. Camp all you want. But you're not going to have all your survival gear and everything's ready to go and have the Wheaties and just have eaten a big bowl of cereal. It's going to happen when you least expect it, that life-threatening emergency. And that's part of what makes them so damn scary. And you're not going to have all the stuff that you think you're going to have. So beware of people pushing stuff over common sense skills. The agenda's obvious, and it involves green. Number 14, they market themselves using vague, impossible to vet terms such as survivalist, adventurer, or wilderness expert. Those terms are hard to vet. Okay, what's a survivalist? Well, according to some news stories, they kill cops and blow up federal buildings, right? Well, that's not what I do in my school. So if you're an outdoor survival instructor, you should have a resume that supports those points. Now, what would those be? Dealing with lack of thermoregulation, principally. Yeah, hypothermia, dehydration, obviously shelter, fire building, settling for rescue. So these skill sets would be built into a professional resume. If you're a survivalist, I don't even know what the hell that means. And the problem is no one else does either. So you have this one word that has a wide range of potential variable definitions, which is not the focus of what you want your training to be. You want to be able to verify that the person training you knows what in the hell they're talking about. And it's not wilderness expert. What if you were a city expert? What the hell does that mean if I'm a city expert? So having a term like outdoor survival instructor, some bona fide simplistic term that's easy to verify is important. If people, and notice networks do this all the time, they use the term survivalist all the time, wilderness expert all the time. You can't vet those, and that's by design. Number 15, they play the fear card. Now, I realize that outdoor survival training is dealing and hoping to mitigate a life-threatening situation. We know they're scary. If you've been in a life-threatening situation, you know how scary they can be. But someone who markets through fear, someone who tries to get you in their course by playing the fear card, that's a red flag right there. Because I don't like when people use fear to manipulate other people. The role and goal of a survival instructor is try to mitigate fear. Notice I didn't say prevent. You can't prevent fear. Someone that tells you that's lying to your face. But I'm trying to mitigate a survival situation, trying to mitigate fear. So if a school is marketing to you about the return of Elvis or the doomsday prophecy or whatever it is they're spinning and throwing at you, take that to heart, that you might want to, vet that person close, right? We don't want to market with fear. We want to market with skills, common sense, a rational mind, and the physics of heat loss and gain, the psychology of a person, and physiology about how the human body works, the 3 Ps. Okay, a survival instructor should have knowledge of physics, heat loss and gain, thermoregulation, human psychology, especially under stress, and human physiology, because the body is what you're trying to keep alive. Number 16, field experience, field experience, field experience. You can't Google field experience. So the longer someone has been in the field practicing and teaching outdoor survival skills, bushcrafting, primitive living skills, whatever, within a specific bioregion, the more of their experience they'll be able to share with you. So this has to be verifiable. You have to have actual field experience. And if you take all the points we've talked about and string them all together and ask those hard questions, then you should be able to get hopefully some honest answers from the people that you may or may not be training with. 17, the last one, you get what you pay for. Your life is worth it. Okay. Whatever you pay within reason for outdoor survival training, what would you be willing to pay if it could save your life or that of someone you cared about? Remember, survival instruction is dealing with your safety and people you care about. It's not a game. It's not a joke. It's serious stuff. You can have fun doing it, but make sure it's from a qualified person. So that's it for Down the Barrel for this episode. Stay tuned. There'll be another one of Keep Your Ass Alive coming up soon. Stay safe. Hey campers, so that's it for this episode of Keep Your Ass Alive. Tune in next time and we'll talk to people just like you about survival advice or whatever floats your boat. Want to watch the only survival show on Earth, created, hosted, and produced by a real survival instructor? Check out The Survival Show with Cody Lundin at thesurvivalshow.com. Want to take your learning to the next level? Please visit my Aboriginal Living Skills School at www.codylundin.com. We offer field courses in modern outdoor survival, primitive living skills, or urban preparedness to enhance your self-reliance, confidence, and safety in the city or the wilderness.
Visit www.codylundin.com today.